My boyfriend said I should be grateful. He even answered my call. 3 weeks later, he was crying in my office lobby, begging the woman he'd humiliated to save his career. My name is Claire Bennett. I was 30 years old when this happened, working as a project manager for a logistics company in Dallas. It wasn't glamorous, but it gave me stability, a career I was proud of, and a real chance of becoming a senior project manager before I turned 31. I'd spent years showing up before sunrise during peak season, solving warehouse crises, calming furious clients, and cleaning up problems left behind by people who disappeared the moment things became difficult. My boyfriend, Mason Reed, lived in a completely different world. He worked in public relations and event coordination, organizing product launches, influencer parties, and corporate events where everyone seemed obsessed with appearances. While I planned budgets and schedules, Mason chased rooftop parties, networking events, and the next big opportunity. Somehow those differences had once balanced each other. He said I made him feel safe, and I believed that was enough. Everything changed about 6 months before the night my car broke down. Mason became close with a group of men from the event industry who called themselves The Standard. Their conversations revolved around status, where you ate, what you wore, who you dated, and whether your life looked impressive enough for social media. At first, he repeated their opinions as jokes. Eventually, he started treating them like rules. The changes were gradual until they became impossible to ignore. My Friday nights at the gym with my best friend Emily suddenly became boring office girl energy, and meal prepping for the week was proof that I didn't know how to enjoy life. "You're allowed to have fun, you know," Mason said one evening as he watched me pack containers of chicken and vegetables. "I do have fun." He smiled like I'd missed the point. "Planning every meal isn't fun. It saves time and money." Exactly. That same attitude started creeping into everything else. Mason constantly talked about women from work, event directors, brand consultants, freelancers who bounced between Miami, Los Angeles, and New York. "They understand ambition," he said one night while scrolling through his phone. "What is that supposed to mean?" "Nothing." It didn't sound like nothing. He sighed, locked his phone, and dismissed me with the same line he always used. "You turn everything into an interrogation." That became his escape whenever I asked perfectly reasonable questions. If he disappeared for 8 hours, I was clingy. If I wondered why he'd cancelled dinner 15 minutes before our reservation, I was controlling. If it hurt that coworkers always got faster replies than I did, I was insecure. Eventually, I caught myself rehearsing harmless questions before asking them. That should have scared me. The call happened on a Tuesday after one of the longest work days I'd had all year. I'd spent nearly 15 hours dealing with an inventory mistake that threatened one of our biggest client contracts, and by the time I reached the almost empty parking lot after 9, I was completely exhausted. I dropped my bag into the passenger seat, pressed the start button, and heard nothing but the weak clicking of a dead battery. I already knew the jumper cables were sitting in my apartment closet, where I'd forgotten them weeks earlier. After resting my forehead against the steering wheel for a moment, I did what anyone in a 2-year relationship probably would have done. I called my boyfriend. Music and laughter filled the background before he answered, and within seconds I realized I was interrupting something. "Hey," I said. "Sorry to bother you. My battery died at work. Are you anywhere nearby? Could you pick me up? Dinner's on me." He didn't answer the question. "Claire, you should be grateful I even answered your call right now." I stared through the windshield, certain I'd misheard him. "I only asked if you were available. I can't drop everything whenever you decide you need something. I never asked you to." "That's exactly what you're implying." Someone laughed beside him. A woman's voice drifted through the phone before he covered the microphone. For a second, I almost apologized. Instead, I quietly said, "Okay, thanks for answering." Then I hung up. I ordered a rideshare, replaced the battery during my lunch break the next day, and never heard a word from Mason about what had happened. 2 days later, he finally texted, "Drinks tonight." There was no apology, no question about whether I'd gotten home safely, and not a single mention of the car. I read the message, locked my phone, and made a decision that felt strangely easy. I stopped calling first, stopped sending good morning texts, and stopped rearranging my schedule around someone who rarely kept his promises. My number still worked. If Mason wanted me, he knew exactly where to find me. 3 weeks passed and he never called. Oddly enough, my life became easier without waiting for him. I slept better, trained harder, helped Emily paint her new apartment, and spent quiet Sundays reading instead of staring at my phone. The constant knot in my chest slowly disappeared. Then, on the morning of the biggest client presentation of my career, the receptionist called. "Claire, there's a man in the lobby asking for you. The clients will be here in 15 minutes, I said, glancing at the clock. "Who is it?" There was a pause. "Mason Reed, and Claire, he's crying." I found him sitting beneath our company logo wearing an oversized hoodie and sweatpants, his eyes swollen and his hands trembling. He jumped to his feet the moment he saw me. "Claire, thank God." "What are you doing here?" "You won't answer my messages." "I haven't received any messages for 3 weeks. I texted you last night. He opened his phone to prove it, then suddenly froze. His face drained of color. What? I sent it to the wrong chat. By then, people in reception had already started watching us. My gaze shifted from Mason to the conference room upstairs. You have 5 minutes. After that, you need to leave. His voice shook. Claire, I'm in serious trouble. Looking at him, I understood immediately. He wasn't here because he'd suddenly missed me. Whatever he'd chosen over our relationship had finally fallen apart. A few minutes later, we were sitting across from each other in the cafe opposite my office. Morning commuters hurried past the windows while 2 untouched cups of coffee cooled between us. I checked my watch. You have 8 minutes. Mason wiped his face, nodded once, and drew a shaky breath. I'm sorry, Claire. I've treated you terribly. Okay. He frowned. That's it. What were you expecting? You showed up at my office in tears during business hours. Tell me why. I miss you. I didn't respond. I miss us. These last 3 weeks have been miserable. They were quiet, I said evenly. You never called. You never asked if I'd gotten home safely after that night. I know. You had 21 days to fix that. He lowered his head. I honestly thought you'd call first. The answer was finally clear. He'd expected me to chase him all along. The guys kept saying that if a woman stops chasing, she never really cared. If she keeps coming back, you know she'll never leave. I stared at him in disbelief. So you turned our relationship into some kind of experiment? It wasn't supposed to go this far. What was supposed to happen? I thought you'd show up at my apartment after a few days, so you could feel like you still had control. His silence answered before he did. I wanted to know you still needed me. The words landed harder than I expected. I remembered helping him move apartments, driving him to the emergency room in the middle of the night, repainting his living room, surprising him with birthday tickets to Austin. None of those memories had felt fake, yet he'd thrown them aside just to prove he still had power over me. I folded my hands. Now tell me the real reason you're here. I did. No, you didn't. He hesitated before looking away. I got into trouble at work. What kind of trouble? There was a product launched 3 weeks ago, the tequila campaign. I was leading it, and now almost $40,000 in payments can't be accounted for. I sat up straighter. They think invoices were manipulated. My agency does. Are you under investigation? Yes. Did you do it? No, but I signed paperwork I shouldn't have. Why? I trusted someone. Who? He hesitated before answering. Serena. That name suddenly explained months of subtle changes. He talked about her constantly, the talented freelancer who knew everyone, negotiated impossible deals, and never seemed stressed. I had always assumed she was just another coworker he admired. Clearly, she was much more than that. What happened? She convinced me she could get vendors to lower their prices, so I let her handle the payments. I still approved every invoice without checking everything myself. And now finance has found duplicate invoices. He nodded miserably. They think Serena created fake vendors, and because my signature is on every approval, they're trying to figure out whether I helped her or whether I was just too careless to notice. I understood immediately. Logistics wasn't all that different from event management. Once your signature appeared on fraudulent paperwork, proving you were merely negligent became almost as difficult as proving you were innocent. When did you find out about the investigation? He swallowed. 3 weeks ago. I held his gaze. You found out about the investigation the same week you stopped talking to me. He didn't answer immediately. I panicked. You pushed me away. I didn't want you dragged into it. I shook my head. No, you pushed me away because your attention was already somewhere else. His jaw tightened. I thought I could fix everything before you found out. By disappearing. I didn't know what else to do. I wasn't buying it. People facing real trouble usually leaned on the people who loved them. Mason had done the opposite, which told me there was more to the story. So why am I really here? I asked. He finally admitted it. I need your help. With what? You know executives. You met our regional vice president at that charity gala. If someone respected by him explained that vendor mistakes happen, they do. Maybe my agency wouldn't assume I approved fraud on purpose. I stared at him. You want me to risk my professional reputation for an investigation I know nothing about. You know me. I thought I did. His shoulders slumped. You disappeared for 3 weeks, acted like I should be grateful you answered my call when I was stranded, and now you're asking me to save your career. Tell me why I should risk mine. For a long moment, he said nothing. Finally, he whispered, I don't have anyone else. The words almost reached me. For a split second, I almost believed him, until I remembered sitting alone in my dead car, wondering why asking my own boyfriend for help had made me feel like a burden. I stood. My clients will be here in 2 minutes. I'll lose my job. Maybe. I could face legal trouble, then hire an attorney. I can't afford one. I couldn't afford to keep making someone a priority after he decided I wasn't one. His shoulders sagged. So you're really not going to help? I hope the truth comes out. If you're innocent, the investigation will prove it. He lowered his head before whispering, I thought you'd always be there. So did I. I walked back to the office without looking back. 90 minutes later, our company landed the biggest client contract of the year. My director congratulated me, the vice president praised the presentation, and for the first time in weeks, I felt proud instead of drained. That feeling lasted until I got home. My phone showed 17 missed calls and 12 messages from Mason. Please, talk to me. You don't understand how serious this is. I'm going to lose everything. For a second, I almost replied. Then I remembered 3 weeks of silence after my car broke down. No apology, no concern. Not even a single question asking whether I'd made it home. Back then, my calls hadn't mattered. Now that he needed something, suddenly mine did. I locked the screen without answering. The next morning, I still believed the investigation was the worst thing happening in Mason's life. 48 hours later, on a Saturday morning, Emily and I were finishing our workout when her phone buzzed. She frowned at the screen before quietly handing it to me. You should probably see this. It was an Instagram story from Brandon, one of the men in Mason's standard group. Funny how some people pretend they're industry stars until the invoices get audited. Loyalty disappears fast when the money does. The comments underneath were even worse. Is this about Mason and Serena? Everybody already knows. Screenshots don't lie. Emily glanced at me. Who's Serena? The freelancer Mason trusted. She folded her arms. I don't think this is only about invoices. Neither did I. 2 hours later, Mason called again. His voice was ragged. Claire, Serena posted everything. Our messages? He hesitated. Everything. When I told him to explain, he finally admitted the truth. We weren't just talking. When did it start? The week before your car battery died. Instead of anger, I felt clarity. Every late night, every cancelled plan, every comparison, every time Serena's name came up, it all suddenly fit together. He hadn't changed overnight. He'd already made his choice long before I realized I was no longer part of it. What kind of relationship? It started emotionally, only emotionally. Several seconds passed before he answered. Mostly. That single word said everything. What does mostly mean? We flirted. And we went out after events. And I kissed her. My eyes drifted to the framed photo on my bookshelf, Lake Travis, 2 summers earlier. Both of us smiling like we believed we'd have a future together. The photo looked like 2 strangers pretending to know each other. When? The second week. The same week you stopped talking to me. He closed his eyes. Yes. While I'd been lying awake wondering whether something terrible had happened to him, he'd already been kissing another woman. I'm sorry. Don't. It wasn't supposed to become serious. I gave a quiet, humorless laugh. You think that's the problem? You replaced me before you ever left. No? Then, explained Serena. He seemed exhausted. She made me feel important. It always came back to the same thing. Status, validation, and excitement. Somewhere along the way, he'd started believing those things mattered more than the relationship we already had. She said she knew investors, agency owners, that someone like me shouldn't settle. Settle, I repeated. I was stupid. You were cruel. He started to argue before stopping himself. I never told you that you weren't enough. You didn't have to. Every conversation from the past few months suddenly sounded different. You're too predictable. You never want to do anything exciting. Some people actually have ambition. Back then, I'd thought he was criticizing my lifestyle. Now I understood he'd been comparing me to Serena the entire time. What did those screenshots actually show? He hesitated long enough to tell me I wasn't going to like the answer. I sent Serena screenshots of our conversations. My stomach tightened. The ones where I apologized, asked you to dinner, checked whether you were okay. He nodded. She thought they were funny. For a moment, I couldn't speak. The messages I'd written to save our relationship had become entertainment for another woman. There were older ones too, he admitted quietly. Pictures, good morning texts, dinner plans, ordinary conversations. Ordinary moments he'd turned into jokes because impressing Serena had become more important than protecting my dignity. What else? His eyes dropped. She asked why I hadn't broken up with you. And I told her I wanted to make sure she was serious first. Everything suddenly became painfully clear. He hadn't been choosing between 2 relationships at all. He'd kept me around until he was sure the other one was real. So I was your backup plan. No, that's exactly what I was. He buried his face in one hand. But Serena lied. She already had a boyfriend in Houston. She never wanted a future with me. She only wanted someone inside the agency. That explained the investigation better than anything else. Serena hadn't chosen Mason because she loved him. She'd chosen the man who approved invoices. And the moment finance started asking questions, he became disposable too. What else was in those screenshots? He swallowed. My messages about you. The corporate drone comments? His silence confirmed it. I'd forgotten I even said that. I hadn't. He whispered an apology, but it sounded hollow now. Finally, he asked, is there any chance? No, I wasn't asking you to take me back. You were asking me to hear your version before someone else showed me the screenshots. He didn't deny it. That was the real reason he'd called. It wasn't guilt at all. It was damage control. His secret had escaped his control, and now he was racing to tell the story before someone else did. Just then, his phone began vibrating again. He glanced at the screen. It's my boss. Answer it. I can't. You should. They're firing me. I figured. They've already suspended me. I'm sorry your career ended this way. My whole life is ending. No, I spoke quietly. Your old life is ending. He let out a broken laugh through his tears. I ruined everything. Yes, I threw away the best relationship I ever had. You did. After a long silence, he whispered, I don't deserve another chance. No. His breathing gradually steadied. I think I always knew you'd say that. So did I. My eyes drifted toward the Dallas skyline before I said the only words that still mattered. Mason, I forgive myself. He sounded confused. What? I spent months wondering why I wasn't enough. I smiled to myself. I was always enough. Those words weren't for him. They were for me. I ended the call, blocked his number, and removed him from every social media account. I thought that would finally close the chapter. It didn't. The following Monday, an email was already waiting in my inbox. Please read this. I left it unopened for nearly 2 weeks. During that time, life kept moving forward. The company officially promoted me to senior project manager, giving me my own team, a larger office, and the career I'd spent years working toward. When my director shook my hand after the announcement, he simply said, You earned this. Those 3 words carried more respect than I'd felt in my relationship for months. Emily insisted we celebrate that night. You lost a boyfriend and gained a promotion in the same month. I smiled. I didn't gain the promotion. I earned it. She laughed and raised her glass. Fair enough. For the first time in weeks, laughing felt effortless. A few days later, Emily called. I ran into Mason. Coffee shop? How did you know? He always goes there after work. She sighed. He looked down for a second before asking about you. What did you tell him? That you're busy and doing well. She hesitated before adding. He cried. My gaze settled on the city lights. I hope he gets help. You really are done. I am. 2 weeks after the email arrived, curiosity finally won. It was almost 4,000 words long. The first part was an apology. The second explained how he'd spent years chasing approval from people whose opinions made him feel successful. Therapy, he wrote, had forced him to admit he'd confused validation with love. One sentence stayed with me. I destroyed the safest relationship I ever had because I believed ordinary love wasn't enough. Part of me believed he meant every word, but timing mattered. The apology came only after Serena exposed him, after he'd lost his job, and after everyone he tried to impress had disappeared. Near the end, he wrote, I'm not asking you to take me back. 3 lines later, he asked if we could meet for closure. I closed the laptop without replying. The next afternoon, Emily texted, Coffee after work. News. As soon as we sat down, she got to the point. The investigation at Mason's agency is over. And? Serena resigned before her final interview. They discovered she'd been using fake vendor companies on multiple projects. So it wasn't just Mason. No, but he wasn't part of the fraud. That caught my attention. He wasn't. Emily shook her head. They cleared him of stealing money, but they fired him for approving invoices without following basic financial controls. That sounded painfully familiar. He'd trusted people too easily and checked the details too late. That mistake had ended his career. He lost his job because of negligence. Exactly. After a moment, Emily asked, Does it make you feel better knowing he wasn't actually a criminal? I thought about it honestly. I never wanted him to be one. You just didn't want him to be your boyfriend anymore. That's the difference. A few days later, my phone rang again. This time it wasn't Mason. It was his mother. I almost didn't answer. Hello. Her voice sounded cautious. Claire, this is Linda. I know. I won't keep you long. I waited. I just wanted to apologize. That surprised me. For what? For raising a son who forgot how to value someone. Her words sounded carefully rehearsed, as though she'd spent days deciding whether to make the call. I'm sorry things ended this way, she said quietly. I know Mason hurt you, and I also know no parent can ask forgiveness for their child. I'm not calling to convince you to come back. I only wanted you to know how much we loved having you in our family. For a moment, I couldn't speak. Whatever Mason had become, his parents had always shown me kindness. Thank you, I finally said. I hope one day you'll remember us without remembering the pain. After we hung up, I opened the hallway closet where the last of Mason's belongings still sat. A couple of hoodies, a toiletry bag, a few books, a charger, and an old pair of running shoes. I packed everything into a cardboard box, added a short note, and sealed it. Mason, these are the rest of your things. I sincerely hope you rebuild your life. Please don't come to my office again. Claire, no accusations, no speeches, just an ending. The next afternoon, I dropped the box off with the concierge at his parents' apartment building in Fort Worth. As I walked back to my car, something struck me. For the first time since we'd met, I wasn't wondering whether he'd read my note, cry, or call me. His reaction was no longer my responsibility. I honestly believed that was the final chapter. 6 weeks later, fate proved me wrong. By then, my life had stopped revolving around Mason. The promotion kept me busier than ever, and although the workload was exhausting, it was the satisfying kind that came from building a career instead of trying to rescue a failing relationship. Emily joked that work had become my new boyfriend. At least your projects answer your emails. They usually do. And they don't disappear for 3 weeks. She wasn't wrong. A few days later, our biggest logistics client invited the leadership team to a private appreciation dinner at an upscale steakhouse downtown. I almost skipped it, but eventually slipped into a navy dress and reminded myself I no longer needed permission to celebrate my own success. The restaurant overlooked the Dallas skyline, filled with quiet jazz, polished executives, and conversations about contracts instead of personal drama. Then I saw him. Mason was sitting with his parents. He seemed thinner and quieter, dressed in a simple button-down instead of the expensive jackets he once loved. When our eyes met across the room, he gave me a small, respectful nod. I returned it. Nothing more. No confrontation. No awkward conversation. Just two people acknowledging a chapter that had already ended. An hour later, I stepped into the restroom and found his father washing his hands. Claire! Mr. Reed. He smiled warmly. How have you been? I'm doing well. I'm glad. After a brief pause, he added, I heard about your promotion. That surprised me. Mason told us. He still talks about me. Not often, he admitted with a faint smile. But when he does, it's usually about how proud he was that you earned it. The words stirred something unexpected, not because I wanted Mason back, but because people so often recognize your value only after they've lost it. Mr. Reed continued quietly. He's doing better. Therapy has helped and he found another job. I'm glad to hear that. It's nothing glamorous, he said, but I think that's exactly what he needs right now. I don't think glamorous was ever what he needed. Mr. Reed smiled sadly. No, it wasn't. He leaned lightly against the counter. You know, I've spent weeks wondering whether I should say anything if we ever met again. You don't have to. I know, he replied quietly. Another silence settled between us. Mason made serious mistakes. He spent too much time chasing the approval of people who disappeared the moment life became difficult. I nodded. He confused attention with respect. So did we, Mr. Reed admitted. His mother and I kept warning him, but he wouldn't listen. He held my gaze. For what it's worth, I think you made the right decision. That surprised me. If you'd stayed, he continued, he would have apologized, promised to change, and probably meant every word. But without consequences, promises never become character. I couldn't argue with that. Before leaving, he rested a hand lightly on my shoulder. You deserved someone who answered the phone because you mattered. Hearing that from Mason's father carried more weight than hearing it from anyone else. As he reached the door, he stopped one last time. There's something he'll probably never tell you. I waited. He still keeps the postcard you slipped into his suitcase before that Austin conference. I remembered it immediately. No matter where life takes us, I'm always cheering for you. Mr. Reed smiled sadly. I think finding that postcard again was when he finally understood what he'd thrown away. After he left, I stood alone for a moment, grieving not for Mason, but for the future I'd once imagined with him. Back in the dining room, Mason and his parents were getting ready to leave. We exchanged one final nod across the room before he followed them out. There were no expectations left between us. The rest of the evening passed talking business, laughing with colleagues, and celebrating a career I'd built myself. Driving home, Emily texted, How'd dinner go? Better than I expected. She immediately replied, Coffee tomorrow? Sounds like there's a story. Absolutely. As the Dallas skyline passed outside my window, I realized something. For the first time in a long time, my future felt far more interesting than my past. 3 months later, life wasn't perfect. It was peaceful. Work filled my days, my promotion challenged me in all the right ways, and Emily loved teasing me about color-coding everything in my life. One afternoon, while helping me unpack boxes in my new townhouse, she laughed. You know what's changed the most? What? You don't stare at your phone anymore. She was right. I used to measure my happiness by whether Mason answered, cancelled plans, or seemed upset. Now silence felt different. It felt like freedom. A couple of weeks later, HR surprised me with another email. Leadership Development Program. Congratulations. I'd been selected for the company's executive mentoring program. When I called Emily, she answered with, You got in, didn't you? I laughed. How did you know? Because you finally sound like yourself again. That night we celebrated with pizza on the floor of my half-furnished townhouse. Several weeks later, I heard another update about Mason through someone in the event industry. He'd found a quieter job at a small marketing company outside Dallas. No glamorous launches, no VIP parties, just steady work. I found myself hoping it stayed that way. Not because I wanted him back. Because everyone deserves the chance to become better, even if they can't undo what they've done. Emily asked the obvious question. How do you feel? I thought about it before answering. Finished. That was the truth. For the first time, I wasn't angry or bitter anymore. I was simply finished. About a month later, we unexpectedly crossed paths at a grocery store. Mason seemed healthier than the last time I'd seen him. He gave me the same respectful nod as before, then quietly said, "I won't keep you. I just wanted to say, I'm sorry." "I know," I replied. After a brief silence, he smiled. "I hope you're happy." "I am." His smile became genuine. "I'm glad." Then he walked away without asking for coffee, closure, or another chance. Watching him disappear down the next aisle, I realized acceptance had finally replaced regret. That evening, sitting on my back patio while texting Emily about movie night, I thought about the woman I'd been months earlier, the one sitting alone in a dead car, believing asking her own boyfriend for help made her a burden. If I could speak to her now, I wouldn't tell her Mason would regret losing her or that Serena would betray him. I'd tell her something much simpler. The moment someone makes ordinary kindness feel like a privilege, stop begging for it. Love should never leave you grateful for basic respect. Looking back, I don't hate Mason anymore. He taught me the difference between being loved and merely being convenient. Today, my life feels ordinary again. I enjoy my work, my friends still make me laugh, and when I unlock my front door each evening, the apartment is quiet in the best possible way.